if he's the big body. You can't bring in another smallish type receiver.
No.
They have enough smallish type receivers. You know,
No, to call him what you usually used to call him.
what, Smurf?
Smurfs.
Yeah, you can't bring in another Smurf.
All right, so let's jump it back here. We talked about the draft, and we're going to dive into a bunch of different positions as we inch closer here to the actual night Thursday, like we talked about. Barry, let's start with this because we know how critical defensive line is for this team. They you look at last season, I think they were second fewest sacks in the NFL. They did not get to the quarterback nearly enough, and you saw it. You saw the result of that in a lot of different ways. You expose your secondary that way, et cetera. For you, is that priority one, and who do you like? Will you go D tackle? You go in DN? Who jumps out at you that you like?
There's a bunch of guys that I like, in this draft, probably the deepest, the guy that I was talking about earlier on, before he just, went to the combine was Trayvon Walker. Mm-hmm. Now he goes to the combine, he runs a 4.5. Now he's the top of the list. I mean, he's jumped ahead of Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end from Michigan. So, I thought Trayvon would be right around that time where, 18.
There are projections that have him ahead of Hutchinson at this point? Wow.
Yes, he's right now, he's ranked the number one DN right now. Aiden Hutchinson is a little smaller, but he's a higher for guy. He's like a Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
But still, the talent that, Trayvon Walker has, his ability to rush the passer at 270, run a 4.5, still drop back in coverage, spy and everything else. He's definitely made himself a number one pick. Aiden Hutchinson is still there. A guy that's really, really falling right now, and everybody's questioning his love for the game is Kayvon Thibodeau.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Thibodeau
Oregon.
was,
Yep.
if during the season, he was actually ranked the number one player in the draft. As far as speed, size, athletic ability. But people are starting to question his love for the game, whether he wants to play the game or not. Is he going to be totally tied into it? Is he going to be vested into it? That's something that we don't know. And he's talking about playing chess instead of playing football. So,
and he left the combine too. That didn't sit well with people.
Right. So at this point, his love for the game is questioned, and that's going to make him drop a little bit. Jermaine Johnson,
that's
another guy
I like. Yep.
From Florida State,
Yep.
Started out at Georgia. He was getting burned, but he wasn't getting enough burn that he wanted because he had guys like Walker, Wyatt, all those guys playing defense. So he left, go to Florida State, has an outstanding campaign at Florida State, has all the tools that you want, as a pass rusher, size, speed, and everything else. He in fact, he ended up being a little bigger than people thought at 255, 260. Long, great pass rushing moves, great ankle bend. He's moving up in the draft also. I thought he was going to be right around 15, 20. Yeah. He's going up now. He was going to be a top 10 pick. From there, you look at, who they have. I like the fact that, if you look at a guy like Jordan Davis Davis will be there, but, he's a freak of nature, 340 pounds, 6'6". Ran a 4.8 40. Mm-hmm. But, his compadre on the opposite side of him on that Georgia team is Wyatt. Wyatt's probably drew more double teams, which allowed Davis to play one-on-one most of the time because Wyatt was the guy that made that whole machine work. Mm-hmm. He was that cog that you had to, as an offensive coordinator, game plan against. He was that good. He will be right around where the Eagles are picking it at pick 15. Now, whether they're going to get Davis or they're going to get Wyatt, apples, oranges, all fruit. Both of them will be great NFL players. I think Jordan Davis has more the high point of where his career is going to be because he can be an explosive player. He's only tapped this much of his potential with his size and speed. But man, there's a lot of guys that can come in and really give you some quality minutes, man. Devontae Wyatt is he would be my pick, but I understand why people would say Davis. You know what I'm saying? But after that, you go on in the draft. I'm looking at guys that, George Karlaftis, I wouldn't invest in him. I wouldn't invest in him.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I think he's played his best football.
He's maxed.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think he can take it any further than what he is. He's more of now this is saying it, but I see him as a Babin. Remember Babin plays the Eagles?
Oh, yeah.
Tattoos and stuff?
Yeah.
That's the extent of what he could be. Now, Babin had 19 sacks one year, but I think George Karlaftis going against these bigger tackles, get their hands on him. You know, he's a power rusher, but he's a power rusher that doesn't have a lot of athletic prowess. You know what I'm saying? He needs more. He doesn't have that shake 'em up that you need to be a dominant guy in the league, you know. So, I mean, then you got Boye Moffitt, you know, from Minnesota. Now, he has all the tools, but he's more of a linebacker-esque type of 3-4 type of defensive end. You know, if you play in a 4-3, he could probably mix it up, but I don't see him as a guy to come in and really be a factor, you know, playing to play out. His upside is not as high as those guys we just talked about.
And Gunner, you always have your ear very close to the door here. What's your sense here where they might go with this? Will they trade up? Will they trade back? They still have the 2 picks in the first round. How do you think it plays out?
Howie's always trying to wheel and deal, and he's trying to put this team in the best position possible to get the best player possible. So, you know, he's talking to people, you know, but he wants to make sure he gets value and doesn't get duped. You know, one thing we can say about Howie is that he gets value for whatever trade he makes. You know, he's very good in that. They know they need defensive help in the trenches. They know they need to get younger. I'm still a little surprised they brought Derek Barnett back on a 2-year deal. I thought his days were done here in Philadelphia. But that's a part of this youth movement. They haven't just completely given up on him yet. I think Barnett is in a similar boat as Brandon Graham was. You know, while people on the outside looking in may have given up on Derek Barnett, there's something within the structure of that organization that they see in a Derek Barnett that they're not willing to give up on him yet, you know, and giving him a second chance, so to speak. I know they're looking at DNs, and rightfully so. I don't know how seriously they're looking at the linebacker situation. We've known for years how they've neglected that position. They go out and get a Hassan Reddick. I've said this time and time again, a lot of times Howie does a better job bringing in somebody else's player more so than he does in drafting a future, you know, stabilizing cog for whatever entity he needs on this team. So, you know, they may pick up another linebacker, but I don't believe it'll be in the first round. I still believe that they're going to, from what intel I've gathered, is that they're looking at DN and cornerback as their primary. Now, if one of those top receivers is still on their board, you'd be stupid not to consider him if he's the big body. You can't bring in another smallish type receiver.
No,
they have enough smallish type receivers. You know,
no, to call them what you usually used to call them.
What, Smurfs?
Smurfs.
Yeah, you can't bring in another Smurf. You've got to get a bigger body. You've got to get a receiver in here that has a wingspan like a California Condor.
Right,
somebody who can go up and win those 50-50 balls. You know, but getting back to what Barrett was talking about, Jermaine Johnson is one who continuously has stood out to me on that board. You know, he really elevated his stat. He kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit through the season, you know, at Florida State, because Florida State didn't have a great year this year.
Right.
But he goes to the Senior Bowl and turns a lot of heads at the Senior Bowl, then the Combine. So like Barrett said, he's climbing up the board. And I love his long athletic build, his sideline to sideline. Anytime you look at an edge rusher, I don't just want to look at how he can go straight ahead. How can he shed a block and get sideline to sideline as well? And Jermaine Johnson is one of the best among a group in terms of getting sideline to sideline, tracking ball carriers down. So don't omit that name from the list as a potential Philadelphia Eagle. This kid has a lot of potential. Not close to being a finished product yet, but he's the type of kid now that has enough moves, enough stamina, enough strength, and agility to come right in and give you immediate help.
Well, guys, let me ask you this, though. You know, we all know Howie wants to be the smartest guy in the room. And potentially Malik Willis and or Pickett will be right around. They'll be right around that. One of those guys will be right around that draft pick of 15.
Yeah.
Do you think, is that just something that the temptation of having a quarterback right there, is that too much of a temptation for Howie to pass up?
I felt all along, guys, and tell me if you disagree, that they like but don't love Jalen Hurts. Like, they're dating, but they're not ready to give him a ring.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And he's got a great personality. Like, wherever you heard that, you know what I mean? So
Right.
there's
friend
a lot
zone. Friend
yeah,
zone.
there's a lot of intangibles to like, but I just don't. This isn't even me. This is me sort of projecting how I think they feel. I don't think they're fully in, which means I don't discount it out of hand, Barrett, that they would. But if you're asking me right now, I don't think they use one of the first rounders on a quarterback. I just don't. I think they're doing their due diligence. They had Corral in. They've had Pickett. Like they've certainly done their homework on Willis as well. I just don't see it. But the one thing I will say is the caveat is you never know with the Eagles.
Never.
They have to be all in right now in Jalen Hurts. You have to justify taking him in the second round when your so-called franchise quarterback Carson Wentz was still in his prime. He was still being considered the franchise quarterback at the time, and it just shocked people that they would take that quarterback. Then all of a sudden Carson is gone, and this kid takes over. You can't give up on him just yet. Now, this may be his year to fail or flop. We're going to find out. This may be his only year to fail or flop with the Philadelphia Eagles, but I think they're all in on Jalen Hurts for 2022. And I think that's part of the reason why Howie positioned himself to have high draft picks in 2023 as well. Supposedly, the quarterback crop in 23 is supposed to be better than it is in 22. Malik Willis is such an intriguing entity. Yep. You know, his name has been all over the place ever since the combine started about this kid. You know, what is he? Is he the next Lamar Jackson? Is he the next Russell Wilson? Is he the next, Michael Vick? What is he? You know, and we're going to find out because somebody's going to bite and take this young man in the first round.
Amen.
I don't think, though, it will be the Philadelphia Eagles. I would be shocked if the Eagles took a quarterback. You know, this is a team that rebounded after they had changed their style of play, finished with a winning record, and got to the playoffs. And when you look at their schedule this year, you look at the home games they have, this is a team that could win 10, 11 games this year. Now, I don't know if that's going to get them deep into the playoffs, but I do believe they could win potentially 10, 11 games with the schedule they have in 2022 and give Jalen Hurts another year of experience in Nick Sirianni's system and in a playoff scenario as well. Now, after 2022 is going to be a defining moment for Jalen Hurts in terms of whether he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle or not beyond that. But they have so many other glaring needs they need to address right now. We've seen it. You can build around I don't want to say mediocre, and I don't want to label Jalen Hurts as a mediocre quarterback, but he's not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. But you can build around a quarterback that's still growing and win despite the quarterback's play. And I think that's what the Eagles are going to try to do right now. Build around the quarterback they have in camp. They've all come out, from the CEO to the GM to the head coach. They've all come out this offseason and said in unison, they are committed to Jalen Hurts in 2022. No bones about that. So now you're all in on your quarterback. What can we do to make the quarterback better as an individual and make the team better around him? That's their MO right now.
All right, let's take a quick time out. We'll come back. We'll switch gears back. We'll get to the Eagles a little bit later in the show, tail end, but we switch gears back to the Sixers because we're going to be joined when we come back by former Sixer, now Sixers analyst for NBC Sports Philadelphia studio analyst, Temple's own Mark Jackson. He's D Gunn. He's Barrett Brooks. I'm Rob Ellis. You are listening and watching Sports Take, JAKIB Media YouTube.